Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and we are finishing the Friday the 13th series today with the 2009 film Friday the 13th. Here is your trivia question for today. Travis Van Winkle's Trent also appears in what movie from 2007? The answer will be at the end of this video. Our film starts off in 1980, where we get to see the beginnings of what happened between Pamela Voorhees and Alice Hardy. We also see that Jason was apparently witness to his mother being decapitated. We then jump ahead to 2009, where a bunch of friends are out camping. Unfortunately, they're camping a bit too close to Camp Crystal Lake. Jason Voorhees, who has become quite territorial and is also sporting the classic bag over his head look, decides he will not stand for these kids being that close. So one by one, he ends up killing each of them, although he leaves Whitney left alive and even ends up capturing her, mainly due to the fact that she seems to resemble his mother. We then jump ahead once again to 6 weeks later, where Whitney's brother Clay is trying to find her. While looking for her, he does run into one of our other main characters, Jenna, who is hanging out with a bunch of her friends at a cabin that belongs to their friend Trent. Unfortunately for all of them, Jason has become aware of them and is planning on taking them all out. He also at this point is sporting the new stylish hockey mask. Now, will the kids be able to survive, or will Jason get them all? This movie is directed by Marcus Nispel. Some of the other potential directors for this movie were Jonathan Liebsman, Samuel Obeyer, and John Moore. Michael Bay was actually the producer for this film and was on quite a roll when it came to early 2000s horror remakes. Not only did he do this film, but also the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Amityville Horror. Victor Miller was the writer of the original Friday the 13th movie. Now, it's interesting, apparently he receives more money if someone is going to make a remake instead of just another sequel. Now, they actually did their best job possible to, in the script, make this seem like it was a sequel and not actually a remake, which it so clearly is. There are some possible references to other films that you can see within Jason's lair. For instance, there's a sweater, which is more than likely his mother's, and there's even a wheelchair, which might have been Mark's from Part 2. Now, the original plan for this film was to be more of a reboot rather than a remake, just because it was going to take place after the fourth film, so it would have been the fifth one, and all the other films that happened originally after that movie just wouldn't have existed. So the last time that Paramount actually made a film about Jason was in 1989 with Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, after that point, they sold the rights to New Line Cinema, but not all of the rights. New Line Cinema owned the availability to use Jason Voorhees, Pamela Voorhees, and Camp Crystal Lake. This is also the reason why all of the films that New Line Cinema did could only use Jason in the title and not Friday the 13th. When they first started working on this film, they actually asked Adrienne King, who played Alice Hardy in the first Friday the 13th, if she'd be willing to make a cameo. Unfortunately, producers decided that going forward, they did not want any previous actors or actresses making an appearance. So it never got to the point of discussing who would play him, but there was talks of bringing Tommy Jarvis back as the main protagonist for this remake. Jared Padalecki took a brief hiatus from the wildly successful television series Supernatural just so that he could film this remake. At the same time, his co-star on the series, Jensen Ackles, decided to take a hiatus as well to also appear in a horror movie remake, and that movie was My Bloody Valentine 3D. Both films actually released only within a few weeks to even a month between them. Derek Mears plays Jason for this film, and I do like the version that they have for this, where Jason is a bit more like a territorial survivalist, instead of being like some kind of maniac hunter who is just trying to seek everyone out. Danielle Panabaker plays Jenna in the film, but the role almost did go to Scout Taylor Compton, which would have been interesting as she was already in the remake of Halloween as that main character. The only other character that I've heard about in this film that was almost played by another actor was Chewie, who was played by Aaron Yu, but was almost played by David Blue. This is the first time when one of the Friday the 13th movies was filmed in Texas. This was one of the ones in the series, though, that was actually released on a Friday the 13th. This movie also has one of the longest prologues for a horror movie, as it actually took 25 minutes until the title card was actually shown. The body count for this film is 14. You have Pamela Voorhees, who gets decapitated with a machete, Wade, who gets cut up quite a bit by Jason, Amanda, who gets roasted alive in a sleeping bag hanging over a fire, Mike, who gets stabbed multiple times with a machete through the floor, Richie, whose head gets split open with a machete, Donnie, whose throat is slit with a machete, Nolan, who's shot through the head with an arrow, Chelsea, who's stabbed in the head with a machete, Chewie, who gets a screwdriver to the neck, Lawrence, who gets an axe to the back and then it is pushed through to his chest, Bree, who gets grabbed by Jason and then impaled on a set of deer antlers, Officer Brack, who gets impaled through the eye with a fire poker, Trent, who gets impaled onto the back of a tow truck, and Jenna, who gets impaled through the back with a machete. Now, technically, Whitney and Clay also might be on this list, as the last we see of them, Jason is popping up out of the water to attack the both of them. So when it comes to the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th, I do enjoy this movie. It's not exactly how the originals were, but with all of the slasher films that came out in the early 2000s, it did feel like it fit right in with a lot of those really good ones. So I did still like it. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Also, in case you were hoping for more from this, there was some discussion in 2017 of doing a sequel to this movie, but that unfortunately fell through. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, Travis Van Winkle's Trent also appears in what movie from 2007? Surprisingly, it was the movie Transformers. Travis Van Winkle first appeared in Transformers as the character Trent. Then he would appear in Friday the 13th, also as a character named Trent. Both of these movies are produced by Michael Bay, and Bay has actually come out and stated that Trent is the same in both films. Oh god, I know it would be terrible, but I so want to see a Friday the 13th Transformers crossover now. Okay, wait. I'm going to give a quick pitch. Here's my idea. We go back to Jason Goes to Hell kind of concept, where he's more of a parasitic type thing, and he's able to somehow infect one of the Decepticons, and he keeps going through killing all of the Autobots and Decepticons, and during their big battle, they're just trying to figure out who's killing both sides. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.